Remember that I asked you that. Remember that I asked that how you're doing. I'm going to be coming back to that. You're also going to probably notice on camera, my eyes might be darting around a bit, and that's actually a very common trait with somebody on the spectrum. Eye contact is difficult at times, and I found that even if I'm on camera, it having eye contact with the screen still affects me. So, which was surprising to me. The perception of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is many times misunderstood, and we're learning more and more about it as time goes on. Most of the time, it isn't what you see, but what you cannot see. And when you're learning about this, we took a course, and the trainer had been doing it for over 15 years, and she said, when I meet someone on the spectrum for the first time, I just met someone on the spectrum for a first time. So there's a lot of variations on the spectrum, and it just depends on how you react to these different points on the spectrum. The things on the list, yes, can happen to anyone. However, there's a difference when you have ASD. So, for instance, just things like depression, anxiety can get amplified. So, things get amplified when you're on the spectrum. And I'm going to be bringing some of these points out. So it's really good that I found out because I'm now aware when things are happening to me. And so I can take steps to try to bring that pendulum back to where it needs to be. And that's the trick. So how did I get the diagnosis? There's a book called the Asper Kids Secret Book of Social Rules, and it's a very good book. It was written for teenagers, basically, but I was reading it to learn about it because our boys were going through getting assessed. And as I'm reading it, I'm checking the boxes going, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I stopped and I said to my family, anybody here think that I'm on the spectrum? And it was like, yeah, duh, dad, 100%. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get diagnosed. I was 52 at the time, and I was. I am not going to lie. When I got the diagnosis, it was very, very difficult to read. And I read it a few times over and over. I'm like, is this real? Is this for real? And I put it in a drawer and I can't look at it. I can't look at it. I felt broken. I felt there's something wrong with me. I always knew there was something wrong with me. And now I have it. It's like, oh. So I had to process and it took me some time. And then I realized something. I'm not broken. I haven't changed. It's a piece of paper. I'm still me. I'm still who I am. But now I understand so many things now. So many things make sense to me in my past. And that's why I want to share what I've learned to help. A common question I get asked, Derek, what's it like to have ASD? So I thought about it, and this is the best way I can explain it to you. What is it like to have brown eyes? You know you have brown eyes or blue eyes or whatever color, but the only time that you're going to notice that is if someone tells you that you have brown eyes or if you look in the mirror. Sometimes when you have ASD and you look in that mirror, you may not like what you're seeing. That happens. As you probably have noticed, and those that do know me, I think differently. I see things differently. And I have to look in the mirror at times to recognize my ASD. And that's not always easy. I went through basically my whole life for 52 years being told things like, wow, you are different. You sure think differently. I can't believe you just said that, Derek. And it was not always said to me in a nice way, or it might not felt that way to me. And that at times was difficult. Social anxiety is a difficult thing to go through. Many, many years ago, I would try to explain to people what it was like to be me or to describe myself. And music was always a big part of my life, huge part of my life. I love music. So I said I would describe myself with two songs. One, You May Be Right, I May Be Crazy by Billy Joel. And two, I've always been crazy, but it's kept me from going insane by Waylon Jennings. Notice the pattern? There was a line in the Waylon Jennings song that I related to so much, and I didn't understand why. The line goes, I've always been different, with one foot over the line, winding up one step ahead or behind. I didn't walk in time with the group. I still don't walk in line with the group. I can't. That's just how I'm wired. But I didn't realize at the time that I was describing this. I was describing social anxiety. And growing up, and even now, it's difficult. It's difficult when you're in a social situation. You don't outgrow that, but you can recognize it now. But I couldn't back then. I didn't understand. And people didn't understand why I was reacting that way. So I've been in many courses through my career as a civil servant, and it's difficult to get into those courses and to so I would sit on the side near a door always. Did not understand why, but that's what I was doing. Small talk. Remember at the beginning I asked how you're doing? I don't understand that question. Never have. How are you? What am I supposed to answer? So I have to think, okay, what's the social norm? Are you asking like how am I doing? Do you want to know that I had to put in a new furnace a couple months ago and both cars broke down and the dishwasher broke down? Is that what you wanted to know, or you just want, oh yeah, I'm doing okay? It's hard for me to wrap my head around that question. So therefore, I don't like that question. I've been trained as a trainer for many, many years, since 1999, and so I've delivered quite a few presentations and training. And one of the things that we start with in training is an icebreaker to help get the group together. Now, my favorite icebreaker is you tell two truths and a lie, and everybody has to guess what the lie is. And it's fun, you get to understand a little bit about people. But one of the ones that is very popular is the bingo icebreaker. So what that is you get a sheet, a bingo card, and on there it'll say things, find somebody who's taken 3 trips to wherever, or find somebody with brown eyes, or, you know, and whatever it is. And so you have to go around, you have to ask people all these different questions. I can't do it. Can't do it. So what do? I just sit there like this. I can't do it. And it's excruciating for me to try to do that. So people have to come to me and, the first person to get bingo wins. I've never ever won, never even came close because I never asked the questions because I just can't. It's too difficult for me. The social anxiety just rises. So I recognize that now. Why? Now, when I was small, my mom had to make sure to cut all the tags off my shirts and my pants. I still have to do that. Thank goodness these days it's a little bit, there's not as many tags. But a funny story is I was at work one day and I was wearing a dress shirt, was new, and I forgot to take off the tag on the side. And I'm sitting at my desk and like just bugging me. You can push through this, Derek. You can push through this. Like it's just a tag. Nope. Nope. I had to get a pair of scissors, sneak out of the office to the washroom, and cut this tag off, hoping that no one seen me leaving the office with a pair of scissors. But I had to. I couldn't function with that tag poking me. Growing up in Waka, uh, lots of loud noises there, and loud noises, bright light affects me. So big airplanes, planes fly over our house, fighter jets. If a fighter jet comes over our house to land, it hurts. It hurts. Growing up, we had big equipment. We had a backhoe and a bobcat, septic truck, tractors. Those noises just hurt. You're too sensitive, Derek. No one understood it. You're too sensitive. You're fine. Changes, even small changes, can be difficult, especially when they don't make sense. So working for the government, I've had a lot of those. And when things don't make sense, I can get rigid. I need to understand why. And it's very difficult for me to leave that alone. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to fight the change. I'm doing it because I want to understand. I need to understand in order to move forward. And sometimes I have to move forward without really understanding why. And that's difficult because it's always in the back of my head. When a lot comes to me at once, I can get very, very overwhelmed. And I've learned through the years of coping mechanisms so that can help me so I don't completely shut down. And that's something that happens with a lot of people on the spectrum is that shutting down too much at once, too much stimulation, what it ever could be. So for example, the other day I was walking in a mall and there was music playing. And I've memorized, not willingly, just memorized thousands of lyrics to songs. So the song comes on, the lyrics pop into my head. So the lyrics are going through my head. There's a store to my right, and they're playing a different song. The lyrics from that song pop into my head. The store on the left is also playing a song, a different song. The lyrics pop into my head. So now I have three sets of lyrics going through my head at once. And as I take a few more steps, there's a few people there talking, and I can hear the conversation. And now I've got three sets of lyrics and a conversation going through my head. So what do I have to do? I have to speed up. I have to speed up. I have to get out of there because it's too much sensory input. And if I stood there, um, I would get extremely exhausted listening to it. I found out something that with too much input or stimulation, or what is called masking, what people on the spectrum do, I get autistic burnout. So masking is when you try to emulate the people around you or the surroundings around you so that you fit in. And when you do that for a long period of time, you get burnt out. So what happens with me is I don't have an episode, I just get extremely tired. So I might need to go just close my eyes, go someplace quiet, just to kind of bring myself back down. So exampling or using that as an example, it helps me bring that pendulum back to center. And I learned that through the years. Well, how else does it work? Well, I'll give you a few examples. Now, I lived in Vancouver for quite a few years. And if you've ever been to Vancouver or lived there, they get a lot of rain, a lot of rain. So there's a lot of places downtown that have awnings. I memorized the whole layout of the downtown where the awnings were. So depending on where I was, I could walk under the awnings, so that I wouldn't get wet. I didn't mean to do that. I just did it. Another example is if you know the TV show Three's Company, um, I memorized all the lines to that show. And so we just happened to rewatch it, my wife and I, not too long ago. And it's all I could do not to talk along with the program because if I did, I would get told off and maybe slapped. And because I'm ruining the show for her, but it's all in my head. It just pops back in. I didn't mean to do that. It's just there and it doesn't go away. So things like that are very, can be rewarding, especially, when you use it for your job or whatever. But it's exhausting because it just doesn't stop. There's a scene in Dead Poet Society, if you know that movie, and you can see the clip on YouTube, where Robin Williams gets everybody to stand on a desk and look around and then walk off. The reason for that is he wanted them to look at the room from a different perspective, to see it in a different way. I basically live on that desk. I'm not standing off of the desk, I'm standing on the desk. That's how I see things in a different perspective. Is it bad? I don't think so. It's just the way I see things. So it's not bad. So you might ask, Derek, how do you do what you do? How can you do these things? How can you do your job, work with the public? How can you be a trainer? How can you be a presenter? How is that possible with social anxiety and so on? Well, that book that I mentioned really helped me understand it. The author said, in short answer, well, it's not me. I'm somebody else right now. I'm Derek, the presenter right now. The author was a ballerina, and what she did was when she got on stage, she was now a ballerina. She wasn't herself anymore. And that's what happens to me. I'm civil servant Derek. I'm presenter Derek. I'm trainer Derek. Totally different Derek. But if you get me on a one-on-one, that's when the social anxiety will be because now I'm just Derek. And then all those things start coming to the surface. They always have, and they always will. You don't outgrow that. But you think about it. I've been able to have a very successful 34-year career. I've got a wonderful wife, wonderful family. Being that civil servant for almost 34 years, I'm planning on retirement. I think I've done okay for just a kid from Waka High being on the spectrum and not knowing it for most of my life. It's not all doom and gloom to be on the spectrum. As parents, my wife and I learned how important it is to recognize this in myself and our boys so that we can get the help that they need, that I need. All in all, I look at it this way. I'm just me. I've always been just me. I don't feel brave or courageous doing what I'm doing today. I've been told that, and that's okay if you want to say that, but I do not feel that. What I feel is I'm doing what a person with ASD does. State the facts. Just the facts, ma'am, warts and all. And I remind myself and others that for every weakness that I find in myself, there's an equal strength. So the trick is to exploit those strengths, to keep that pendulum up here. That's important. So you also need to know when that pendulum is going this way and trying to stop it before it gets here and bring it back to center. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you can recognize it, which really helps me now to bring myself back to center and work on putting it back up here. So when I have those big weaknesses, I have those big strengths. And so I want to always exploit those. And I want, if you can take anything away from what I'm talking about today, remember, like we all have strengths for sure. Keep that pendulum as high as you can with your strengths. Play on those strengths and recognize when you're going the other way. We on the spectrum are a very interesting bunch. I encourage you to learn more about it and the fascinating subject of ASD. There are a lot of really good TED Talks on YouTube about it. If you know someone that has ASD that you work with or whatever, it's so good to have those people on your team or in your life because they're going to see things that and say things that you never even thought of. And it's really good to have. The imagination having ASD is huge. I've got a huge imagination. And for instance, when I was a kid growing up, I used to write plays, science fiction plays, and I would record them. I would do the sound effects. I had a hi-fi that I found in the basement and I'd play music. I did this for who? Just for me. But because my mind was going and it needed that outlet. And I wish I still had them today, but I don't. But that creativity is there and it's strong. And so all you need is a spark for it to go off. And I have to apologize to my supervisors at time because they'll ask for ideas. And then all of a sudden, like one goes, and then the next thing they're getting emails with like 20, 30 ideas just flooding because it's like a floodgate. To me, that's awesome. It's awesome to be able to do that. Exhausting, yes, but to be able to do that and to share like that, it's gold in my opinion. So in closing, I'd like to quote Greta Thunberg. You probably know who she is. She said, I have Asperger's, and that means I'm sometimes a bit different from the norm. And given the right circumstances, being different is a superpower. So we all have our strengths, but us on the spectrum have some things that we want to use and we want to focus on those positives. So I encourage you to work with Saskatoon Autism Services. They're great people. They're awesome to work with. Um, my story is to be continued, and I'm hoping to do more and to share more as much as I can. But for now, that's all I got to say about that. So now it's time to pick my autistic brain. Olivia's going to help. If you have questions, you can put your hand up or you can write it in the chat, and Olivia is going to help me with that.
Yeah, so as Derek said, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please feel free to, or if you prefer, type it in the chat. I can read it out, whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you very much, Derek. I really enjoyed the talk, and I was wrapping birthday presents, so I didn't want to be doing that whilst listening for you visually, but I have been very attentive all the way through, and I've really enjoyed the mix of storytelling and useful advice. As you're raising your children, is there something you're able to do as a parent that you find is really helpful as you're parenting a child with neurodiversity because of your own knowledge now about your diagnosis?
I think being able to see the patterns, being able to see and recognizing, like, especially when that pendulum is going the other way, but understanding too, like when you see the strengths and really encouraging those strengths, like music or writing or anything like that. Um, it, it's a little bit clearer, and you can help out a little bit more, seeing where help is needed, where encouragement is needed, and um, and that's rewarding when you can see that or catch something before it goes the other way. So I hope that that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I have to log off because I have a sick child at home and he's back to buffing, but I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's been really interesting.
Well, thanks for coming, Alice. And I just want to mention Alice helped me write a cookbook. And so we go back quite a few years. And thank you so much for coming. Really, really appreciate that.
One of your many creative strands, hey? So yeah, it's been really nice to hear you presenting today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's an interesting story. Alice is she's a writer, and so she helped me write a cookbook about 15 years ago, not published yet, and it's as I because it's from me, it's quite different. So one day, hopefully.
We have a question in the chat here from Maria. She asked, could you please repeat the name of the book you mentioned?
Oh, yes, it is The Asper Kids Secret Book of Social Rules. And it was recommended to us by that person that was giving the course on to help us understand ASD better. And yeah, it's written really, really well.
Awesome. Michelle just typed the name of it into the chat there too.
Hi, this is Maria. I do have another question. You just mentioned that you wrote a cookbook. So my daughter was recently diagnosed. She's 3.5, and she is a super picky eater, which comes with autism. So my question is, do you know when you were a child, were you ever a picky eater, and if that turned around? Because if you wrote a cookbook, it means you cook and love cooking.
I love cooking, and yes, and I'm still a picky eater. I like what I like, and I don't like what I don't like. One of them is cheese. Can't stand it, and I even hate touching it. So now I understand partly why, because that sensory thing. But yes, was a very picky eater and used to drive my mom crazy. I believe my cousin's on here, and so she would be able to even attest to that, and how it would, yeah. So, and I'm still a picky eater.
I'm really glad to hear that you did write a book to help out with that, I guess. Thanks so much, Derek, for sharing. It was so great to hear your experience. It was awesome. Thanks for sharing it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another question here. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really inspiring. As a mom of autistic kids, it gave me big hope. And my question is, did you get any difficulty at school, like academically, when you were in an early age? So in your younger years, were there any academic difficulties?
I was quite good at school. I would get bored sometimes. When I was in grade one, we moved halfway through to grade one from Saskatoon to Waka, and before I had moved, I was in a class and I was doing grade three work. But I enjoyed it because I was off by myself and it was quiet. When we moved to Waka, it's a small school, right? So I remember like catching up to in the workbook and passing some kids. But as time went on, I it was more and more difficult for me just to keep my attention. And in fact, I remember failing computer sciences when your computers were just coming out, and I was like loved computers. I was obsessed with anything to do with computers, and I failed it because I felt like I kind of knew more than the teacher, and so I just shut off. And then I realized like I didn't want to go to school anymore once I finished, and I took 6 months of business college, and that's all I ever took. And so it can be. I know it varies, but I think a lot more was social anxiety and having to mask every day was probably the hardest part and frustrating or be getting frustrated because um, I didn't know that people didn't think like me. And so when they didn't understand, I would get frustrated. And then, like, I didn't understand why. So hopefully that makes sense.
It looks like Kev has their hand raised. You have a question, Kev? Kevin, Lorraine?
Derek, we just wanted to ask in behalf of a sister who's quite shy. She wanted to ask, does the disorder make it hard for you to serve Jehovah out of love instead of obedience?
Um, no, no. I think, one thing when you're on the spectrum is, and you both have known me for a long time, is that um, our emotions can run quite high at times. On the spectrum, it's amplified that our loyalty, our caring, and our empathy is a strong point on the spectrum for a lot of people with ASD. So that goes into all aspects of life, and um, it doesn't go away. It just doesn't go away. It's always going to be there. So people that like I've known people for decades, and I still keep in contact with them, like even work-wise. I still am in contact with the two people that I started the government with 34 years ago. Um, and people go, "How do you do that?" And I go, "I don't know. It just seems that I should be doing that." So all of those emotions are amplified with ASD, at least for myself.
Thanks very much, Derek. We're really asking for another sister that just chose not to ask. So, and I
Right.
have known you for many years, and you're just as sweet and caring as you were when I first met you. And you'll always stay my annoying little brother, and I love you much. Don't ever forget that.
Yes, I annoyed Lorraine and played a lot of tricks on her through those years. And now you know why, Lorraine, because I thought very differently, and my mind goes very, very fast. And I'm proud of that. It's served me well through the years.
I think no different of you, and I treasure the friendship through the years. Jehovah
Oh,
bless
thanks.
you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Christy and Melody. So thanks for sharing your story today. I'm wondering, looking back, what kind of supports do you think may have been a benefit for you? And we support young adults on the spectrum.
That's a good question, and that's a question that I get asked quite often. And it's a difficult one to ask because growing up in the 80s, nothing was known about this. Um, so much would actually have to be different. Um, you know, you would have to um, you would have to have it more accepted because if you were told that back then, you might have been looked at differently. And I've heard stories about that. So it's a really difficult one to answer. I think the thing that would have helped me the most is realizing that not everyone thinks like me. Most don't. And that would help me with my frustration because thinking that everybody thought like me and then having to explain myself all the time was difficult and frustrating. So to know that would have probably helped me a little bit more. Yeah.
We've got a question from Sarah. So it seems that many individuals with autism, scroll back up here, put in effort to recognize and react to others' social cues. Are there any particular autism social cues that non-neurodivergent individuals should learn to recognize and respond to?
Um, well, I think one of the things is when you can see that we need that space, that quiet, that's a big thing. It brings to mind, and I don't know if who has seen this or not seen this. This is fairly recent. There was on the recent Survivor TV show. There was a girl on there, and she completed the task, and she was having so much difficulty with it. Then you find out later that she's on the spectrum, and she had an episode, and you can tell like the others didn't know, and they're congratulating her, and she's closing, and like she's really losing it. But there was one person that she trusted and told this to, and he came by and she told him what what needed to be done to bring her down, which he did. Um, and then she told her story, and then she was okay. So, seeing those cues and knowing what you need to do to help. Um, if you go to Autism Services website onto the newsletter, I had posted a write-up, and I called it "What's Your Kryptonite?" And I talk about exactly that. And one of the things I said that, when Superman's holding the kryptonite and he can't get away from it, somebody has to knock it away. So Batman has to come around and knock that out of his hand in order to help bring him back to normal. And sometimes we need that. We just need that listening ear or that quiet or just that understanding. And it doesn't happen all the time, but just recognizing those social cues, I think is and the knowledge, really, really helps.
We've got a few more comments in the chat. So Marianne said, wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing your story. I remember you playing the piano so beautifully at such a young age. You described a lot of similarities to our grandson. He is 16 and recently diagnosed as autistic. Our daughter and son-in-law saw so many markers, but had to fight the system to finally get it recognized. They live in Calgary. Finally receiving the diagnosis will hopefully open the door to help him navigate through life.
Thanks, Marianne.
And then Daria has said, thank you for sharing your experiences. What are some misconceptions about ASD you often encounter?
You don't look autistic. That's probably the biggest one. Or, um, you know, and like I said, it's not what you see, it's what you don't see. And that's probably one of the bigger ones is that, people that know me forever go, well, no, I don't see it. Well, it's because I hide it. I've been hiding it for so long. And, but when you take a step back and you look, and you might go, oh, okay, that's why you were like that, or that's why you did this, or so sometimes it's a bit like that. So that's kind of my biggest misconception that I get. And or like, well, isn't there something you can take so that you're not? Well, no. That's just the way my brain has been wired, and I like it like that, but you can't fix what's not broken. But that's how sometimes people see it, is that you might be broken and you need to be fixed. So hopefully that makes sense, Daria. So I was thinking about something else that helps describe it a little bit. And my wife will attest to this, is reality TV shows. Um, I don't understand them because I don't feel they're real. And so if she's watching The Voice or whatever, and I'm commenting like, well, you know that you're gonna have to pick one. Why are you like saying, well, I hate this part, or I hate, well, you're gonna be a star, and well, what are the odds that that person's gonna be a star? And it's like, can you go somewhere else? Because I don't get it. And to me, it's like, well, you know, because I don't see it that way. I see it kind of black and white, and so I have a hard time watching those kinds of shows without opening my mouth. So I have to I have to zip it or I have to leave because I'll get into trouble otherwise. Anything else that anybody wants to know?
Hey, Derek. Thanks
Hello, Mr. Packer.
for giving another one of these presentations. This is probably maybe this is the third time I've seen you deliver one of these. And previously, you've provided them in at least the ones that I've attended in a work more of a workplace setting, since we all know you as colleagues at the department, the federal department that you work for at IRCC. And I'm wondering if for the rest of the group who are participating here today, who perhaps have not heard from you as much as with respect to your experience with ASD in the work setting, in the work environment, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about how ASD has given you a unique perspective with regards to how you go about your work. And like you kind of touched on this a little bit already when I think you were mentioning that you have so many ideas, right? And so like when you would send something like that to a supervisor, to a superior, right? With you kind of just list them all out because there's so much, and your imagination is just kind of like you said, it's almost like a floodgate has been opened, right? I'm wondering if you could maybe share a little bit more about that and how it's impacted your career.
Um, Thanks, Mark. That's a good question. So, um, anybody that's worked with me knows, like, I go into work, I want to have some fun. Um, I want to I've always treated my clients with respect and like people and not a number. And it's interesting you brought that up because this just happened yesterday. And I went to Superstore and I'm walking near the meat counter and there's a woman cutting meat and she's looking at me and she's smiling and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. And I'm getting closer and she's like, hi, 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 hi. And I don't recognize her and thick Ukrainian accent. And she says, you don't remember me? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. And she says, do you still have your Calgary Flame watch? And I went, oh, okay. I tested you for citizenship, didn't I? And she goes, yes. And she said, she was so excited and she was telling me about her son was playing double A back then. And now I think she said that he was playing with the Blades, but I couldn't quite catch it. Anyhow, she remembered me and was so excited to see me. That would have to be at least 8 years ago. So for me to be able to make that impact on somebody 8 years later and is so excited to see me, um, is uh, I'm honored that that happened. But as you know, Mark, I always would look at things that way. I would say things like to my supervisor who, she'd be off to the side. I couldn't see her and this all of a sudden ideas would pop into my head and I'd say, hey, do you want to do a citizenship ceremony with the comic book expo? And she'd, yes, please. And so I would come up with all these awesome ideas just pop into my head and or just different ways of doing things or uh, training in a different way. And so that's helped me look at stuff in a different way that's been able to, as you know, Mark, some of my other presentations that I've created, like just being able to see all that, being able to remember it, and then being able to deliver it in a simple way, has been invaluable to not only me, but I think to the organization, to my colleagues. If I think that's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah, definitely. And I can vouch for that too, I would say for as a colleague and also for the as part of the wider organization that you work for. So we appreciate that perspective there.
And you don't have it for too much longer. Yeah. Well, I bored everybody enough. Well, thanks for coming. If there's no more questions or comments, just keep the conversation going and learn more about it. That's my advice to you. I'll turn it back over to Olivia.
Yeah, will I turn it back over to you, Ali, for our
Yes,
closing
I'd like
comments?
to. Yes, thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Derek, and thank you everyone who joined us today. Thanks so much for the presentation, for the questions, and this information session is part of our celebration. So we have so many activities. You can go and see all we have in our website and follow our social media. And thank you so much for joining us. And Derek, now you're part of our newsletter, our social media, our website, and probably we are going to have another online session in the future. Is an invitation.
All right. Well, thanks
Thanks
again.
so much.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.